Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus here with a review of the cult breakout star of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, as she is represented in the second wave of the 6-inch Black Series lineup. Captain Phasma comes to me via the combined efforts of American and Australian artists Kryn and Albie, who got the piece to me at fairly great expense. However, this is clearly going to be the best character in the film, and her $994.99 price tag will be but a paltry pittance in the face of the plastic perfection that surely awaits. Also, no spoilers, please. Captain Phasma wears the same armor as the regular First Order Stormtroopers, and the quality of the sculpt is about the same as their appearance in the 6-inch Black Series. All of the major details seem to be accounted for, and the only major mushiness happens on the sides of the helmet piece. However, Phasma is an entirely different piece of tooling, as she is a solid head taller than those under her command. While one could theorize about the upscaling of a CAD model, her hands are wholly unique sculpts and her proportions are just different enough to have me feeling that she's an original piece for the most part, and not just a simple upscaling. Phasma's armor is chrome-plated in the film, and this figure takes the common big-box toy approach of rendering such a quality in flatter metallic paint. Personally, I'm super cool with this on a $20 toy because I find vac metal to be far easier to damage than paint if it isn't applied with a lot of care and durability in mind. It also attracts fingerprints like a mother, etc., etc. But given how much her reflective armor parts were a huge visual draw for many of her fans, I can see this being a downer for a lot of folks. But honestly, it's the most realistic thing for a Black Series figure to pursue. The part that makes me draw a line in the sand is the part where Phasma's ridiculous, glorious cape is a sculpted PVC component. After Kylo Ren's game-changing soft goods, I was super excited to see that level of prowess used to deliver an awesome cape, and I got nothing. This non-fabric cape looks fine and even poses fine to a certain degree, but it's grating to see a companion piece in the same line wearing an entire robe of the stuff, and a darn fine robe at that. I admit it also disappointed me because I knew that the SH Figuarts Captain Phasma would be saddled with a similar thing, and I was hoping Black Series would flaunt its newfound strength in such an obvious spot. However, Phasma's other accessory is her F-11D blaster, customized in a pale bronze paint and bearing an added stock piece on its rear end. It can plug into her thigh holster just like on the regular Stormtroopers and works out quite well. That said, its paintwork is not nearly as clean as what was seen on the Stormtrooper accessories, and it kinda mushes out a lot of the sculpted detail. The Captain's elbows work better than the Stormtroopers, check it out. She's actually holding her gun, and she kinda looks like she's really holding her gun. Just wanted to get that out of the way right now. I'm gonna do the normal posability run through, just remember that. Remember that. Her head uses the same connection that we've seen on the Black Series Force Awakens stuff with a ball socket joint on a hinged stem, which lets her look down at people who are shorter than her. The ball socket joint lets her tilt her head a bit quizzically, look left and right. If you use the two in tandem, you can just snap her neck and toss her into the next film. And her shoulder is on a universal joint. The focus is going crazy on this reflective armor. Her shoulder's on a universal joint, goes out, to a proper tree pose on that arm. On this one, you can get it pretty far up. Not all the way up, but this cape has more give than it both looks like and feels like. Like, it's not a... It's a flexible plastic, but it's a kind of stiff one. Her elbows are single-jointed with a bicep swivel, and as you can see here, they bend the full 90 as opposed to all of her troopers. So, I guess it's just the Stormtrooper who's really been screwed here as far as the First Order goes. Her torso joint is similarly wonderful, same as the First Order Stormtroopers. Her wrists can tilt and hinge inwards and outwards. And on this arm, as you can see, some things this arm will be hindered in doing, but there are a surprising number of things it is able to do despite that. And I found this was way less limiting than I was expecting. I still would have preferred soft goods, but I'll survive. I've yet to hit a pose I want to do that I can't do because of this. She can't pump this fist, well, she kind of can, but she can't do this with that arm. I've never really wanted her to. The one arm being free adds a lot more freedom to posing than I was expecting. Like the Stormtrooper, there's no cut waist swivel, but she does have ball socket hips. They can go forwards about that far, back about that far. Her belt is, PVC. On the Stormtrooper, the belt didn't really get in the way all that much. He could only put his legs out about that far, but he could still kick forward and stuff. On Phasma, the belt, it's made of soft stuff, but I think that the silver paint on it stiffens it more than on the Stormtrooper. So while she can, move her leg forward well enough, getting it outward, it's kind of a nothing deal. Like, that's about as far as it goes, as opposed to this dancing fella here. It's minor differences, but it means that while her elbows work better, her hips outwardly do not quite work as well as the Stormtrooper. There is a cut thigh swivel that takes the armor with it, in that way I enjoy. Double jointed knee with that soft detentory, totally works fine. She's got a hinged ankle to go forward and backwards, and the connection allows for an ankle tilt. Her feet are bigger, and they have a little bit of that upward curl I talked about in the Stormtrooper, but not nearly as much, and like an entire ridge section around here too, so she stands like dead solidly when she's, like, I don't know, doing this. I don't really know what that is. She's looking around her shoulders. She's like, hey, who's over there? Is that a film? And then it isn't. It's just a marketing campaign. So she's posable enough. She is, due to her hips not being able to go outwards as much, overall maybe a bit more rigid than the Stormtroopers. But for basic Phasma poses and just looking like the big commander, I've not had too much trouble with her. It would have been nice if these pouches and things were on little hinge connections somehow to fold up out of the way, but QC-wise that might have been a disaster, who knows. I'm happy enough with her. She does a lot more posability stuff than I was expecting with that cape, and that's probably the biggest factor that lets me say she's posable enough. Captain Phasma joined Kylo Ren and the First Order Stormtroopers in being among the hardest 6-inch Black Series figures to get upon the launch quarter of the Force Awakens merchandise typhoon. In fact, for a time, it seemed to me that she became the figure to find. This will certainly calm down over time in various case revisions, and that is great because she's about on par with the Stormtroopers that will often be found surrounding her. She's decently posable despite her PVC cape piece, with better elbows than her troops but less effective hips in the sideways motions. She's coated in a fairly shiny but unswirly silver paint, which will probably remain a divisive quality to any potential buyer. Phasma is not the best figure in the line by any means, but she looks menacing in a First Order display, and is entirely worth consideration if you're going for a Kylo and Pals display like I am. Just don't pay the markup she's been going for on the aftermarket if you can at all avoid it, as the extra cash will only make her hips and cape become extra painful when you get her out of the packaging. Only a professional like myself should be dropping $994.99 through 2 different foreign national connections. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and after a few months of just having Adam Driver and a pair of suited stunt actors, I've suddenly found myself with a respectable First Order crew. Now I've just got to avoid the trap of ridiculous troop building. I'm doomed.